everybody, Joe Cioffi here. It is a Wednesday, March 28th at 6 o'clock Eastern Time. Hope everybody had a great day. We are heading closer and closer to the Passover Easter weekend, and looks like the weather here, at least in my neck of the woods, looks to be rather reasonable and seasonal over the weekend. But we have some things going on that are impacting the weather here in the short range. We've got some severe weather tonight across parts of eastern Texas and western Louisiana. We're going to look at the long range, which I think is going to set up an opportunity for one or maybe even two last gasps of snow, depending on where you are located, for next week. And in England, in Britain and Scotland and Ireland, I think we could have a shot here for also a last gasp of snow coming perhaps as early as Easter Sunday night and continuing on Easter Monday. So we're going to take a look at all those things. I'd be curious if those of you who, if anyone is on from England, Scotland, or Ireland, if they are talking about this or not. But I was looking at some of the models today, and we were going back to what we said the last couple of days with low pressure that's going to be west of the English Channel, and just a little swath of cold air, but just enough that some moisture is going to be lifting up into that cold air. So it would not be a big shock if you wind up seeing an early April snow in Britain and in Ireland. But let's go first to what's happening at the moment. And we're going to start off with, I think we'll start off with the severe weather, because it is fairly extensive here. And we've got some watches up this evening across that area that we mentioned in southeast and east Texas and the western half of Louisiana. And now we are extending what looks like a tornado watch here up into northeast Louisiana and across the northwestern third of Mississippi. All of that is encased in an area of marginal to slight risk of severe weather. But when we look at the radar, some pretty strong cells are firing up. North and east of the marginal risk area and the general thunderstorm area, you're seeing just some patches of rain into West Virginia and into southern Pennsylvania. That area actually has been diminishing, but it's all part of this sort of stalled frontal zone that lies from southern Texas on northeastward into my neck of the woods, which is impacting our weather here. So we'll bring up the radar to show you what's happening here, and we'll give you this wide view and bring that up to the top. Let me see if we can interact with this. But you can see the area where the thunderstorms are really firing up tonight in northwestern Louisiana back through southeast Texas. And is this going to work for me? Yes, it is. Awesome. Okay, so there's your shot here of these thunderstorms. And you can see right in there, it looks like there might be some bowing on the radar echoes here. So I would not be surprised if we wind up with a bit of tornadic activity out of this. And I guess that's why the Storm Prediction Center has extended that tornado watch up further northeastward up into northwestern Mississippi. And there's a snaking line of heavy thunderstorms north and northwest of the Houston area. It looks like the whole area is kind of moving northeastward, not making a whole lot of eastward progress, at least not yet. So pretty busy night with regards to severe weather. We've had some. It's been sort of sporadic, but we haven't really had a huge amount of severe weather to deal with in this month of March. March is usually a pretty busy month in severe weather. March, April, May, and into early June. But because I guess of the weather pattern that we've had, much of the storminess has been confined to those nor'easters, and we haven't gotten the setups for big thunderstorms in the plains and in the Gulf states. But it looks like at the moment we are playing some catch up. Meanwhile, I'll bring up the visible satellite picture here of what's going on across the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area, and there's dry air in New England that tried to move down today, but it only had a very limited success in areas to the north and west, north and east of New York City. A lot of clouds streaming in across Pennsylvania and West Virginia through Virginia, so much of the area in cloud cover. There were some, there was a larger area of rain when it moved across southern Pennsylvania into southern New Jersey earlier this afternoon, but that's pretty much weakened out. And let me separate that. As far as warnings go, let's bring this up here. And you know what? Let me just refresh this. And it doesn't look like they've added those tornado watches yet on this map. This is as of 22:04. And, you know, there's a large area of severe thunderstorms, but you know what, I better just double check here. Give me 1 second, folks. Let me just double check off screen. Hopefully I did not misread that. Sometimes these things take time. And, you know, the Weather Service's depiction of the tornado, you know, I'm just looking here, the yellow, yes, tornado watch, excuse me. All right, that is correct. So we do have tornado watches up, and also in addition to that, we've got some flash flood warnings that are up as well. So I'm just glad I didn't get that wrong. Sometimes the colors throw me off a little bit. The tornado watch shows up in some places in red, and the flash flood in the darker red. So made a bit of an error there. From that respect, but again, all of that yellow area indicative of a extensive tornado watch that runs from southeast Texas on up through Mississippi. The green that you saw, by the way, in the green area here, that is all flood watches up that run all the way up into Kentucky, southeastern Ohio, and western parts of West Virginia. So what is happening when we look at the surface map with the enhanced satellite in the background? A lot of Gulf moisture coming into play here. You know, temperatures and dew points very, very high across the Gulf states. So you got low pressure developing in northeastern Texas that's going to run along the frontal boundary. So you have a pretty strong setup here for severe weather going into this evening. And gradually over the next day or two, we're going to see that severe weather area shift eastward across the central Gulf states on Thursday and then into the southeast on Friday, although the threat for severe weather diminishes to some degree as we move into Friday, as the whole frontal boundary just basically weakens out. So that pretty much sums it up as far as the weather going on in the short term. So let's jump to where we're headed here in the longer term. And one of the things that we talked about yesterday is the jet stream pattern for next week. And I want to touch on that because, you know, one of the key elements here was the fact that we were going to be watching how the upper flow sets up in Canada with respect to a vortex there. And when that vortex tries to pull out later next week, the question was whether the western part of that would stretch back and then swing around, creating the opportunity for something to develop before ultimately the whole pattern breaks down. That remains the big question today, and models have come in a little bit. I just want to show you here as we go through the long term. You got this spinning vortex in central Hudson Bay. Kind of looks like, in a way, it looks like what we had back in December, January. We have a very strongly negative East Pacific oscillation, which was really the big driver in that cold 5-week period that we had early in the winter. We've got higher than normal pressures from Greenland across the poles. There's an upper high sitting off the south coast of Greenland, and there's a really strong upper high in the Bering Sea, and they're just kind of basically moving themselves across the top there. The vortex, the polar vortex, being suppressed further to the south. Now, while the flow has this kind of broad look to it here in the east, there probably will be, it's very hard to pick out, but there's some energy that's running along in the southern branch there of that jet that's going to run eastward, and models are showing an area of precipitation Sunday night into Monday that makes it up to about New York City, Long Island, not quite all the way up through northern New Jersey, indicating that maybe that northern fringe could possibly fall as a bit of light snow. Most models don't do much with it, or at most maybe a coating to an inch. I don't know. I want to see if that's even real, but it's later on in the period. This is the new GFS run that's out through Monday, and you start to see, part of that energy that's in the that's swinging around here for Saturday and Sunday. That winds up making a low near Newfoundland. The main vortex still hanging back in over Hudson Bay, and then you've got some energy that's coming in to the west. So we're going to back up one model run here, and as we go along, the GFS yesterday really wasn't overly bullish with the idea of some energy on the west side of this vortex coming down and around as the vortex begins to pull out. But you can see it here by the end of next week, how it stretches from northeast to southwest, and the bottom of that trough, northeast of Lake Huron, there's some pretty strong upper air energy here. The problem is that the trough axis is pretty far to the east, so it would wind up dropping its energy into New England, which really wouldn't produce very much here in terms of an event for the East Coast. The less than reliable European, however, which was late today for one reason or another, actually still wants to go with this slightly more aggressive idea. You see how the first vortex pulls out to Newfoundland, and you get a new one that forms back near James Bay. Now, yesterday's European had it pulled back further to the west, which left room for a system to dig down and around, and it's still trying to do that here. But with the upper low near Lake Superior, it would need to be stretched back further west and dig a little bit further to the south to have any kind of implications for the Northeast. However, there might be enough here to suggest that there could be some last gasp snows for parts of the mid-Atlantic states, if the European is right, for both Sunday night, Monday morning, minor event, and then something maybe a little bit more important late next week. Ultimately, when we go beyond the 10th day, and we will go back one model run to look at the GFS, if this is to be believed, once this vortex pulls out, you can see it pulling out here, by the time we start the second week of April, a ridge pops up in the east with a trough in the west. So that will at least suggest that the second week of April is going to wind up being warmer, perhaps warmer than average in the east. I'm not ready to buy this yet because a lot is going to depend on that first vortex for late next week and how it pulls out. I mean, if it pulls out the way the GFS does, yeah, the ridge is going to come flying back up. The European has it, a bit more of a muddled look here, because I'm not quite sure whether this is going to pull out or is there going to yet be another arm that's going to rotate around, keeping things colder. The European in its long range has been arguing that we're going to be in a cold pattern in the east for quite a while during the month of April. But the GFS, which I think on the whole has worked out better in its view of the longer term throughout much of the winter, I'm going to give it the edge on this, and that after the first week of April, we could wind up seeing this cold pattern break. There are other things going on in the stratosphere that suggest that that may very well be the case, but we'll just have to wait and see on that in subsequent runs. Now, let's take a look at what's happening in Europe, where as we go into the weekend, we've got some troughing here that's coming into Ireland and off the coast of France and down through Portugal. That's lifting up, and when we look at the cold air that's available, it's not a lot because of the time of year, remember, but it might be enough that there could be some surprises here. So why don't we take a look? And we're starting out with this evening with a little bit of rain coming into Britain and France and Ireland. Nice little low there on Thursday, coming ashore near Wales. and you can see how the thing just kind of rotates around and then drops southward into Spain. Now here comes the next low. This is now into Easter Sunday, approaching Ireland and England and sweeping northward. Now it looks like on this particular run that the GFS is not quite as cold with whatever cold air there is, but if we back up one run, which I will do now, let's back up one model run. You can watch this as the moisture swings northward, and you get this band of snow that develops, and even some darker blue snows. Not so much in southwestern England, but once you start moving further north and into Ireland, there's a fairly decent area here of accumulating snows that's being shown. I don't know how real this is. Maybe you know, there's going to be the model battles that we deal with here, warmer runs versus colder runs. The amount of cold air now going into the beginning of April is pretty limited, but I was actually quite surprised at how much the models produced in terms of snowfall here, because as we go through next week, and I think the bulk of this, of course, is front end loaded, but I'll just show you the snowfall map, going into Sunday. Here's Monday. When we add Monday to the equation and into Tuesday, I mean, there's some pretty hefty snow amounts that are being produced for this time of year anyway, up through central and northern England and on up into Scotland and even into parts of Ireland. So that's gonna. I'm gonna be interested to see how that plays. I'll try it. Let me see if I can get. This is the 12Z run. I'm trying to get to the 18Z run to see the difference. And loading. Well, it figures. Okay, so let me. All right, so this is the old run. I'm trying to get to the new one. There we go. So the new run, a little less bullish, actually a lot less bullish on the snowfall on the southern flank. It still produces some, halfway impressive amounts for this time of year on the order of 12 to 20 centimeters for northern England and for Scotland, but very little in Ireland. So this particular run of the GFS looked to be a warmer run overall. And just so that we give equal time to the U.S. in terms of snowfall through next Tuesday, so we can go a little bit further than, well, at least through next Tuesday. You can see it, from this first thing on Monday, producing some snows across Virginia, mostly on the light side, with this stripe of snow back over into central Missouri. And then, of course, you've got this other area that runs across the northern lakes, back through the northern plains, and on up into western Canada, extending southward into the northern Rockies with some snows. That's through Tuesday of next week. We'll go back a model run to show you what the earlier 12Z run did, and we'll take it forward. It really didn't pick up too much on any activity toward the end of next week. The GFS really didn't do much with that particular system. But we've got the new run anyway, the old run, and I'll back it up, and then we'll jump to the new run to see how much of it we have. But there's your surface low going into western New York with the trailing cold front. I don't expect severe weather in the northeastern mid-Atlantic states out of this. Maybe a few thunderstorms in the southeast come Friday. And by the way, here's the severe weather out for overnight back through East Texas and particularly into northwest Louisiana, northwest Mississippi. Some pretty hefty severe weather there. For Thursday, less so, but concentrated more in southern Alabama, back to about New Orleans and into the Florida Panhandle, and then even less as we move into Friday. But this front goes by. Weather conditions improve on Saturday. There's that weak front for Sunday. And here's that first system for Monday that goes by to the south. I'll come up to the latest run. Is that the 18Z? No, it's not. Let me just go back to the 18Z now and see how much we have of that. Okay, so now we moved forward a run, so let me back it off. Yeah, this first system, kind of just goes by. It looks pretty weak as we go into late Sunday night into Monday morning. Then we have a cold front that will come through Tuesday night and Wednesday with a shot of cold air for the middle and latter part of the week. And that may set the table for something late next week. I honestly believe at this point, because when we're pushing into April 10th, we really are in the part of the calendar. It's got to be perfect. It's got to fall at night to accumulate. Very hard to see snow accumulations during the daytime unless you have some really, really cold Arctic air to play with. And I don't see, I really don't see that in the cards. But this might be one last shot for both England and Ireland on the European side, and for the Northeast and Northern Mid-Atlantic, considering the type of winter we have had, which, as I have said, for me, it's been very much a remarkable winter indeed. And you know what? It took till the middle of March to come to that conclusion. We had to wait for what was in store for March. If we didn't know that ahead of time, that March was going to turn out to be the month that it was. And Shelly Man Studios, I'm with you. I am so tired of this below average stuff. I really, really want it to go away. Richard Groves, nice to see you here on board. A flood watch and tornado watch in Houston, Texas. Yes, for all of Southeast Texas, and you're getting some pouring rains there, and you've got more to go as that severe weather moves on through. Kevin Francis, not so dry in Burlington today. Towards the end of the day, maybe, but it was mostly overcast. I'm assuming you're talking about Burlington, Vermont. I'm thinking you are. Easter Monday, a lot of Americana, almost like Boxing Day. Yeah, well, exactly. Easter Monday is I believe, Easter Monday is a holiday in Europe and in Britain. It's almost everything is closed. They know how to extend a 3-day weekend in Europe. Anytime they can, they got a 3-day weekend. Northeast weather is so rigged. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Shelly, man. What do you mean that it's rigged? Are you talking about the below average temperatures? Yeah. I'm kind of tired of it myself. Timothy Veltman, if the snow window is closing and the fat lady is warming up her voice, she is clearing her throat. If you listen carefully, you can hear her. What happens if she sings too loud and breaks the glass? Well, then maybe it goes to 90 degrees before the month of April is done. But yeah, I mean, at this point now, folks, as I said, it's got to be perfect. The setup has got to be just right in order to get a late season snowfall. They do happen in April. I don't deny it, but down in my neck of the woods anyway. But in the years that they've happened, the setups have been very, very unusual. April of '96 comes to mind, and by the way, in April of '96, where I live, we had every bit of a foot to a foot and a half of snow in some places on April 16th, I believe it was. And it's all came down at night. I was not there to witness this. I was away on vacation that year in that week. But as it was described to me, snowflakes the size of pancakes. And some people said that it was harder to drive in that. The snow was so heavy and so wet that it was harder to drive in that than it was in the snows that fell in the blizzard of '96 back in January. So it was, cars were getting stuck everywhere that night because of the just the sheer water volume that those snowflakes had. They literally described them as coming down the size of pancakes. And yes, in the U.S., Easter Monday is a work day, unless you're creative and you make it a 3-day weekend. A lot of people do stretch it out into a long weekend, and of course, with Passover and Easter coinciding this way, you have schools with their spring vacations in various schedules. I'm not sure how they work. I know how the Catholic schools work. I don't know how the public schools have set up their time off with regards to the holidays this year. All right, let's leave it at that, folks. We will keep you posted. Check out the website post today on meteorologistjoecioffi.com. I write extensively about this. Angry Ben is doing a whole creepy bunny theme on nycweathernow.com. Look at his last 3 posts. He's finding Easter bunnies. One is creepier than the next, and he has more coming for the next 4 days. So you can check that out. Just as a reminder, if you are on Long Island or nearby, on Sunday, the 8th of April, I will be at the Deer Park Library in Deer Park, New York on Long Island. It's about halfway out, exit 51 on the LIE, and you got to go south toward the Southern State Parkway. Lake Avenue is where the Deer Park Library is located. You can Google it. From 1:30 p.m. to 2:45, I'll be there. We're going to talk about the winter. We'll talk about the Four Easters, or the nor'easters, or 4 nor'easters, however you want to word it. We'll talk about that and take a look at how things are evolving for the spring, and maybe we'll take a little early look at what kind of hurricane season lies ahead, as if I'm good at long range, which I'm not. So, but we'll take a look at it anyway. So if you'd like, join us. Just contact the Deer Park Library and let them know you're coming, or you can just show up. And yes, tonight, Timothy, 9:15, Joe Rayo and Joe Cioffi on the Joe and Joe Show on Facebook. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. We will see you tomorrow.